Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tori and today I am going to be setting up my bullet journal for the month of February. So I have two journals pulled out here. This is my bullet journal and this is my catch-all journal. And for this month, I actually wanted to do a theme of bagels. I had intended to do this theme last month and written it in my previous bullet journal, but I completely forgot about it because National Bagel Day is in like January. So I wanted bagels to be my January theme, but like I said, I forgot. So I just decided to do it for February. So I had sketched out a little bit of some of the ideas that I wanted to do for this theme. And I do this a lot in my catch-all journal. I also do like little mini book, like mid-book reviews while I'm reading the book. Just thoughts and stuff so I don't forget things. And just kind of place things in here, just whatever I'm feeling, whatever I want to do, whatever. So I wanted to kind of show you my little theme idea. And I'm just going to have that off to the side here in case I need to reference how I colored these bagels originally. And I've got a nice little mixture of markers over here. So I've got some rulers and stencils like I normally do. I have my eraser, and then I have all of these markers. Some of these things I might not even need, but I always would rather have more than not enough. So I will start with my Crayola Colors of the World markers. And I basically just pulled out like a shade variation here. I have very light golden, light medium golden, medium golden, medium deep golden, and then deep golden. So I've got 5 of my thicker markers, and then this one is light almond. This is like the thin tipped ones, and I was thinking I might use this to just do like a little gridding in the background. Those are going to be my primary colors. This one I don't know that I'll actually use during this setup, my Zig Clean Color Dot Marker in the color 602 Oatmeal. I'm not sure if I will actually be using this during the setup, but this will probably be what I use to mark things off after everything is completed. I also have the sand colorway of this Staedtler Tri Plus fine liner. I got this at Michael's, and it's just like a regular 0.5 nib fine liner. I have my 992 Tombow Dual Brush Pen. Like I said, some of these I'm not sure if I'll actually use, but I wanted to have them just in case. And then I have a 0.5 and a 0.05 fine liner. And I just wanted to have a really thin line, and then the 0.5 I will be using for my titles. So I've got all of those and my rulers here. I also have pulled out a couple of washies. These two I believe were from a washi tape set from Michael's. I have no idea where I purchased these super thin ones from, but it's just brown washi. I don't even know if I will be using them, but just in case, I do have those here. So before we actually get into the setup, I did want to do a little flip through of how my January spreads are going. So I have been consistently filling this in. I'm really proud of myself this month for actually tracking everything. And then on any days, or some of the days that I didn't actually do any running task lists, I actually just did some journaling on those days about like what was happening, why I didn't give myself a task list to do, and all this good stuff. So here's where we are today, the 24th. I have one more spread here for the last week of January, and then I have February all sketched out. And so we are ready to go, and I am just gonna jump right in. So I will hand it over to my voiceover self to kind of talk about what I'm doing. I would love to know your thoughts on a bagel theme in the comments below. I love bagels, especially everything bagels. So those are going to be kind of the bagels that I'm trying to draw, I guess, in this setup. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know what you think. All right, let's jump right in. The first thing I'm doing here is kind of outlining my sketches of the bagels that I kind of outlined in here into my setup. For this particular spread and this theme, I want it to be really, really kind to myself. I love bagels, and I know from experience that when you make bagels at home, that they are not perfectly round. So instead of coming with this idea that I wanted everything to be perfect, I kind of revisited the thoughts and memories of how the bagels looked when I made them at home. And if I can find a picture here, I will pop one on screen of the bagels I made myself, just handmade bagels. I made some during the pandemic, and then sometime last year I remade those same bagels, and chef's kiss, they were amazing. And when I was doodling out everything for this theme, those were the bagels that I had in my mind. So I will kind of try and pop a picture up here on screen so that you can see what they looked like. So my bagels here were very wonky, very not perfect circly type items. So that is what I really kind of fed into whenever I was sketching these out. For my border this month, I am going to do just a rectangle border with circled edges, and I'm doing a double border specifically because I want to use one of my Crayola Color of the World markers to just add a little bit of color around the edge of each of my pages as well. There will be quite a bit of coloring in this setup since I am going to be coloring all of these bagels in, and I'm really going to stick with my medium 3 colors. I have one color, I don't even remember the names of them because I did my initial editing and recording and all of this stuff like 3 or 4 days ago. So I am not going to mention these colors by name because I don't remember what the names are. And I'm laying in my bed right now. I'm recovering from a migraine, and I'm not gonna go get the markers to look at them, so I'm sorry. But I'm using my second lightest color to color in the first 4 bagels, and then I will move on to my medium color, which is the one that I have now, and color in the other 3 bagels, I believe. And as I'm coloring these initial colors in, I am also going to try and add like a little bit of shading where I think there might be shadows of those same colors, because with the Color of the World markers, since they are water-based, if you go over them again, it will add a little bit of a darker look and shadow to it. After I do that initial shading, I am going to go back in to each of the colors with the next darker color, if that makes sense. And then kind of just add additional little lines and shadowing within the shadows that I have already done, just to give it a little bit more kind of variation and dimension. And then I already kind of titled in my February title, and I'm going to go in and color in the bagels that I have doodled on the other side of that title. For my titles this month, I am just using that Micron 05 fine liner, and I'm just doing a very small caps font just in my regular handwriting. I figured since I was going to be doing so much doodling and coloring in this setup that I would leave my kind of title areas and header areas just very basic. And so I decided to just do a small caps lock font. I didn't want to do any type of calligraphy or anything else because I didn't want anything to take away from my bagels. Once I have all of the initial bagel coloring in, I'm going to go in with my darkest color, which I think was Deep Almond. I'm going to add just a bunch of dots all over. Then I will grab my Pigma Micron 05 and also add in some black dots. And then I will pull out that Staedtler fine liner in the sand colorway, and I'm going to use that to do just little lines. I don't actually off the top of my head know all of the seasonings that are in everything bagel seasoning, but I know that there's quite a few and there's a bunch of different textures and shapes. So I figured what I would do for this to kind of give it that same look is just add different colors and shapes while I'm kind of doodling these quote unquote toppings in. The third to last thing that I'll do is add a little bit of grid type lines behind my title, my February title. I'll also come back in and add a little bit of those lines in the upper left-hand corner of my larger bagels. But before I do that, I will color in my actual border using my second lightest marker that I have pulled out. And I will also use the washi tape that I've pulled out to kind of fill in some of the empty space on this page. I'm going to use the tannish color, and then I'm going to use the dark brown, very thin washi that I have. Off camera, I did come back in and add a little bit of that black and white grid washi because I felt like on the following pages when I add that, it really breaks up all of the kind of brown color that I've got going on. Originally, I had not intended to use the exact same color theme that I did last month, but I didn't want to really add any additional color to the bagels because I wanted them to look, I guess, as realistic as they could look, even though like I'm doodling them and they might not look super realistic, but I didn't want to make them like an odd color. So I just kind of stuck with that same color theme. Moving on, we are on my calendar page now. I'm doing my border outline for the full spread, and then I'm going to use that 0.05 fine liner to do all of my lines for my calendar. Last month I did do two separate calendars, one for like my real life stuff and then another one for all of the content stuff that I wanted to do. And let me tell you, I really loved having those two calendars. They were a bit of a pain to set up initially though, so I figured for this month, before I start doing that every single month, I would just try doing a little bit larger of a calendar to see if I can manage putting both on the same calendar, or if I really want to just go back to doing two calendars a month. For my bagel doodles, I'm going to stick to kind of smaller bagels, and throughout the rest of my spreads and setups in this video, my bagels are going to be a little bit smaller than they were on my cover page. So I'm going to stick to a little bit smaller bagels, and then I'm also at the very bottom going to add kind of a little color code chart. So I'll assign one color to all of my personal life things, and then I'll add another color to any type of social media content or content related things that I want to do for the month of February. I added a little title to this page that just says this month, and then used that same font and header type font that I will be doing as just kind of my days of the week. Then I will move on to coloring all of my bagels using that exact same method that I used on my cover page, where I will choose one color and then go in with the next darker color to add any type of shadows and anything like that. On this particular page though, I did add some bagels that looked like they had like little bites taken out of them. And on this page, I actually colored those bites in darker than I did the rest of the bagel. But as I was thinking about it, and when I moved on to the next page, I was like, wait, the inside of a bagel, or really any bread, is usually lighter than the outside of the bread. So that doesn't really make sense how I colored it on this particular page. But on the next page, I will color it kind of the correct way. There is only a couple of these bitten bagels throughout the whole setup, but you know, I already did it here, so I'm not gonna like try and cover it up, and I think the bagel looks fine as it is, but I did notice that, if you were wondering. I'm going to be adding in a lot of that gridding with this very thin Colors of the World marker as well. And then I'm going to decide, since these bagels are much, much smaller than my initial setup, that I don't want to use just the regular deep almond color. I'm actually going to pull out my very thin one, the same thinness that I'm using for my lines or my grids in the background. I have the Colors of the World, all of those markers in that same size. So I pulled out the deep almond from that one, and I'm going to use that as kind of my part of my seasoning. I also used that Tombow 992 marker to do all of my date line highlights on my calendar. I think that might be the only time I use this marker in this setup, but I did use it, so woo, go me. I'm just getting now the rest of my seasoning added to my bagels, and then we will move on to the next 2 pages. These are going to be my orders page and my currently's page. I don't know if people enjoy watching me set up the same things every month. Since I started tracking my bullet journal, I have noticed that I haven't really changed up my spreads too much, but I also know that these really, really work for me. And when I did end up going back through my previous bullet journal, these things, like specifically the currently's page that I keep in here, I really enjoyed looking back and seeing all of the currently's that I had for the month. The orders page really helps me throughout the month, just make sure that I'm not overspending money. But I really like going back and looking back through, and it kind of adds a little bit of funness to my quote unquote planner system, where I'm not just looking at never-ending task lists and potentially getting down on myself for not doing tasks or canceling tasks or whatever with my tasks. When I get to this particular page, I can be like, oh, look at all these fun shows I watched. Look at all these games I played. Look at all these books I read. Or even, oh, this must have been when I ordered this thing, because sometimes under my orders, I'll write like the company and what I ordered from that company. Like as an example, for this month, I did place an order from Ali Edwards, the Story Play collection. So when I added it to my orders page, I wrote Ali Edwards, and then I kind of wrote Story Play right next to it, and kind of do like a little bit of a blurb of what I actually ordered. And that kind of also acts as like a little memory keeping type thing for me for the things that I'm ordering, things that I'm watching, playing, reading, all that good stuff. So I don't necessarily know that this would be helpful for anybody else, but I really, really love having these 2 spreads in my bullet journal setups and having them to reference back on once my journals are complete. I don't know why I have rambled on about that so much. Like, it's not like you need me to justify to you why I have these spreads in my bullet journal, but that's the reasons that I have been keeping them in here. And just, I kind of feel like they're more like memory keeping spreads, while also the orders ones kind of keeps me in check for the month, if you will. So for this one, instead of doing the border around the whole page, since I have this broken up into particular sections, I just added that double line dashed or dotted or broken line border around each of the sections. Since I like to section off these particular items, I felt like it would be more pleasing to the eye to just have each section broken up by the actual page border instead of doing a page border around the whole page and then also adding another border, even if it was just a line inside for all of the different sections. Let me know what your thoughts are on that below. If you would have added a full page border and then each section, or if you would have done it just like this where you just border off each section. I am, I think, done with this. I kind of doodled out my bagels, and I only doodled those in a couple of those sections. And a couple of these sections that I doodled them in, I'm also going to add some of that grid line work in the background just to bring a little bit more oomph to the page. I also kind of felt like I needed another point of sort of decoration but since my currently playing area is a little bit smaller, I didn't want to cover that up with a bagel, so I just added some grid lines into that. I'm erasing right now because I want to add a little bit of washi tape to this page as well, since I did include that on my initial setup or my initial cover page. And I despise seeing pencil lines behind washi tape. Let me know if you're the same below, but I always do it. I always have to pull back up my washi tape and erase those pencil lines. So for the last 2 pages in this setup, I have already doodled out my lines. Figured you'd probably be tired of seeing that by now, but these last 2 pages are going to be my mood tracker and my habit tracker. And I basically did the same thing here. Since these are 2 separate pages, I just drew my borders around each individual page and added a header area that says moods and one that says habits. The only page that I will be adding bagels to is going to be my mood tracker. Since February only has 29 days, I didn't really want to do a bagel per day. I thought about it. I really did. I thought about drawing out an individual bagel for 29 bagels for each day in February. But I was already kind of doodled out at this point, so I figured that I would just draw a large set of bagels at the bottom and then just do squares to color in each of the months. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that I just like coloring things in, and I like coloring squares in just as much as I like coloring images in, so squares were fine for me. So I colored in 29 squares, and then I added 6 little kind of check squares down at the bottom. I will decide when it gets closer to February what colors will be the colors for each mood and what moods I'm going to track, so I'm not filling that in through this setup. I also have 6 habits listed out on my habits page, and I am once again going to be handwriting the entire month in 6 times. I don't know why, but I really loved the way that looked last month, so I wanted to do it again. And then while I'm doing a bunch of numbers, I'm also going to number each of my boxes on my mood page so that I've got all of the numbers done all at once. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have been erasing my sketch lines anytime I'm about to color my bagels or really anything in. And that's because I did notice when I was doing my prep pages for this particular kind of setup for this month, I did notice that if I colored over pencil with these Color of the World markers, it was really, really hard for me to erase those pencil lines. Even harder than it is when I color over pencil lines with Tombow markers. So I was trying to kind of save future me from being annoyed by the pencil lines that I could not erase. That's the first time you've probably seen me pull out that lightest color, and I use that to highlight each of my days of the week for my habit tracker, and I also use that to add a little bit of shadow underneath my actual bagels that I drew. At some point in this setup, my battery died or something happened, and I went back and added like kind of little shadows underneath all of my bagels with that lightest color. So that's on any place where there is bagels in this setup. I just only recorded it at this point, but I did use that really light color at some points. So now I'm kind of just adding all of those texture seasoning bits to my bagels here, and then I'm going to work on adding some gridding to this page. There is quite a big gap underneath my habits header, so I will add a lot of grid work to that particular section as well. And then I believe I will add some washi tape there just to kind of fill in that space. I didn't feel like it was big enough to add some bagel doodles to, and I did have one sketch out there originally, but I just wasn't feeling it when I was actually going in and doing all of the line work. So I skipped it and I just added a piece of washi tape there, and then I will fill in the space next to my bagels with some washi tape as well. Once I get this washi tape added, I think I'm done. And I will do a nice little flip through so you can see how this whole spread turned out. So here we are at the final flip through. I would absolutely love to know what your thoughts on this theme are down below. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a bagel emoji in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!